time again for another episode of Real True Facts. My name is Shirley Jones.
And I am Ben Vereen. Not that one.
So we have a huge show for you today. I want to say it's out of this world, but I think that might be a little too cheesy.
I think it would be if the show weren't out of this world. It really is. So I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
Well, then our show is out of this world today because we are talking all about aliens.
Right, and this is a big juicy topic. So we want to really dig in as far as we can. But it is, we could do the whole podcast itself could be just about aliens. So hopefully we can pick and choose the right things to explain and the right truths to expose.
Yeah, and it would be, not easy, but it would be easy, like you said, just to do an entire podcast about aliens. And so I am reluctant to limit ourselves to just this episode. So let's just say this is part one in a very, very, what I anticipate to be a very long series of discussions about aliens, because there's so much there that we can't possibly figure it all out today. We might just scratch the surface a little bit.
Right, and not necessarily concurrently running series.
Yeah, not necessarily. So we'll say part one, aliens today. So I am very excited to get into it today. We've got a very special guest who I'm not even sure if we should be talking to, but he agreed to be on the show. So we'll bring him in a little bit later and discuss what he knows. And apparently it's a lot.
Right. And, we are being as safe as possible. So as far as I know, his real name will not be used.
Yes.
As far as I'm aware. So
yes, for his own.
Yeah, and for everyone's safety, because once he spills the beans, we'll all be under the same risk he is. I think.
Yeah, those beans can't be unspilt. So
you can't unspill beans. You can't put toothpaste back in the tube.
Can't do it. So for his safety and for all of ours, we will not be using his real name today. So.
And of course, we have Dr. Seymour back again this week to help us with the science stuffs. Kind of helps us give us that foundation of science every week.
Yes, that we so desperately need. So I know we don't have a segment today because it's a huge show, but I would be remiss if I didn't talk about what happened in Brazil recently.
Yes, you are very excited about the recent Brazil report. Tell everyone about that in case they missed it.
Yeah, so a few days ago from the recording of this show, there were some crash landings of UFOs in Brazil. I believe it was a bunch of different lights in the sky. They were moving erratically, as UFOs tend to do, and they crash landed. That's really nothing new. Things like that happen all the time. But the thing that was really spooky about it was that all the footage that people who had witnessed this crash, all the footage that they had shot is mysteriously being removed from the internet. And so all of the news of this UFO crash landing happened, and now suddenly all the footage is nowhere to be found. So that is a huge, huge issue and is a little bit scary. There were a bunch of lights in the sky. I think they said they were multicolored lights. And now the government, I guess the Brazilian government, is stepping in saying that there's really nothing to see here by literally saying there's nothing to see by taking all the videos off. So that is sort of the latest and greatest there. We had the declassification of one UFO sighting in the States not too long ago, and now we have this instance in Brazil. So we're kind of seeing, the toothpaste not being able to go back into the tube now that these things are coming out. Now we have tons of other things that are being withheld from the public, which is not cool.
Right. And I think it's become pretty obvious that UFOs are out there and have been coming and going and back and forth, Earth and beyond. So, this episode, I think it's safe to assume that UFOs are real and are here. And so we're going to take it to the next level and really talk about, UFOs obviously, but who or what is on those UFOs, and have we communicated with them?
Right. And the ones in Brazil exploded. So not only did they crash, they exploded. So there's really nothing left, and there's a whole conspiracy
Oh, so that
there.
was that. I don't think that was in the video. That must have been in the article. Which
Right.
okay,
Yeah, it wasn't in the video. It's very hard to find the
that's
videos
why.
now, but I
Yeah,
did
that's why I
manage
must have
to.
missed it if it was in words.
Yeah, if it was written, you probably would have
Yeah, I
missed it.
missed
But
it.
there was a massive explosion. I think 3 explosions. And people are saying that maybe the government stepped in and blew these things up. So normal civilians wouldn't be able to see the technology. A lot of times that happens. They will blow up things that are technologically advanced so that technology can't land into the hands of others. So they're thinking that may have happened as well.
Right. So, yeah, without further ado, maybe we should see if we can bring in Dr. Seymour to start getting a scientific.
Yeah, I know. I just think we don't have a moment to waste here. Let me just bring him in up from our science bunker here. Go, Dr. Seymour, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. It's good to hear from you both.
Hello, welcome back.
Great to have you here, Dr. Seymour. So this is some, we're not talking about just earthly science here. We're talking about some science that, I don't know. Is it still called science if it's not based on the laws and physics of Earth, first of all?
Yes, and that's one of the challenges is all of our scientific study is limited to the laws, the experiences, the biology, chemistry, physics that we're used to here, and trying to extrapolate that and connect it with what we know is its own field of science now.
Okay. So for moving forward, is it safe to assume that the laws of physics are the same on Earth as they are on other planets or other galaxies? I've been told gravity might be different, but other than that, are the things going to work the same way?
We do have reason to believe that physics would be pretty similar until we get into like a black hole scenario.
Right,
and
I've heard of those. Yeah, all bets are off with black holes.
Right.
Yeah, down is up is down.
And one of the comforting things in terms of that is that the laws of physics then can dictate the rest of the fields of science as well. So we have although there's going to be quite a few differences, we have a comfortable starting point.
So we have a good scientific foundation to start off with, and we're talking about UFOs. They kind of use physics to their advantage. What about these? What about beings that come from the UFOs? Do we have any reference?
Well, that's where the challenge becomes a little bit greater. It's been since mid 20th century. Maybe 100 years, if we're going to be generous, probably not that long, but since we have been trying to approach extraterrestrials with a bit more of a scientific touch. And the initial approach was always assuming that other life was similar to life on Earth, using the same chemistry, therefore the same biology. And as we start to learn more through astronomy, through physics about other parts of our solar system and about other galaxies, other solar systems, we're starting to open our minds to new, different possibilities for how life could exist outside Earth, but also how that life could interact with Earth's life.
Okay.
I think you're absolutely right. I think we have, as a people, graduated from the notion of tiny green men coming down in flying saucers, which may have happened, but I think we're also at a point now where we recognize that there's a lot of different technology out there, and that the shapes of these aliens could be corporeal, they could be something else, and we're a little bit more open to the possibility of what a different alien life form might look like. And so I think it's very interesting, especially talking today about aliens and the existence of aliens, is that we're not just talking about the way an alien looks in a cartoon, because we have actual evidence of what they, or at least some aliens, could have looked like in ancient Egypt from a previous episode. But we're also talking about just the very existence of different kinds of aliens and what that might mean for us as a society as far as making contact, because that's my number one priority as far as, thinking about aliens is, when are we going to make contact, and what is that contact going to look like for us?
Contact. I think that is. I think that's an important. Maybe that's a good goal we can set for ourselves, even in this discussion, so we're not getting bogged down in the details of, oh well, are they tall? Are they short? What kind? Are there big ones, little ones, green ones, gray ones?
Yeah.
But maybe, okay, well, how are we communicating? What's the goal? What do we want to accomplish here? So that could be a really good focus for us moving forward, because at the end of the day, it really does come back to communication.
Yeah. And what do they want from us? Do they want anything? They may not want anything at all, but they might want to convey messages, and we have to be open to receive those messages. I mean, just if you look at different species on Earth, they all look and sound and communicate in different ways. And so I think it would stand to reason. And I think a little bit of Dr. Seymour might be rubbing off on me just scientifically, that it's not finite what these beings might look like. So just being able to know for sure that there is alien life out there and that they may want to contact us, that gives me a lot of reassurance.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to, before we bring our guest out, so Dr. Seymour, when it comes to communication, what kind of examples do we already have that may be non-traditional or not just talking or sign language in nature? What kind of maybe examples of communication we have that might be a little more unorthodox?
With the animal kingdom, correct? Well, a lot of communication between animals here on Earth is visual. Sometimes that is the way they move, the colors, the shapes that they're making. But sometimes it can also be through transmission or lack thereof of light from one thing to another. And that's not what we would have considered even 20, 30 years ago as communication, but the ability to track light waves from one being to another is an incredible way that we have recently discovered animals are able to communicate, sometimes even more complex messages to one another than what humans can communicate.
Oh, okay. So that makes sense. Yeah. They're communicating with us even before they get out of their ships or crafts with these blinking lights and flashing lights. And we don't really quite understand it yet. We just know they're saying something and we're receiving it.
It's like a Morse code, or, like if you look at Close Encounters, popular movie, we know that a lot of times things that happen in movies really happen in real life. Things are based on that. So they could be using a more complex language like music or even math to communicate to us in that way as well.
And I've heard dolphins have psychic powers, for lack of better terminology. And you don't need to explain the whole thing, Doc, because that's we could do a whole episode about psychic dolphins. But I've heard of that. Is that yes or no? Is that true?
Yes, and the Cliff Notes version is about the difference in speed of sound and light in water versus air.
Wow. Okay, that's exciting, because now we have a couple. We already established two ways maybe these aliens are communicating with us. Light waves and sound waves. Like dolphins or other animals. So this is.
Have you guys ever swam with a dolphin before?
I have not. I do not know how to swim.
Well,
unfortunately,
fortunately underground you don't need that. But I have actually swam with a dolphin. I swam with a dolphin in Honduras.
Did you feel like it was communicating with you in ways that that made you not uncomfortable, but ways that surprised you?
1,000%. I was so surprised with my interaction. The dolphin's name was Kenny. It didn't tell me that, but its trainer did. And
Kenn or Ki?
I'm sure. Well, I assumed it was like EY, like Kenny Chesney, but it could have been Kenny like NY, like South Park. I don't know.
Sorry, I meant the second letter, Kenny or Kenny.
Like Kenny, like oh my God, they killed Kenny.
Sure, it's really not that important.
Or like Ken -E, like Wally. That could have been the case too. But dolphins, what I learned from them, not only was the experience in the water so profound, I physically wept, but the interaction also came with a warning because dolphins are very flirty and they're very strong. So they like to just knock you over because that's a way that they can communicate with you, is they like to play games. And so I guess thinking about different species, it's like we can't rule out the possibility of fun because a lot of things end up being really serious, and it could be not as serious as that. We could be having a fun communication as well, like some kind of different creature wants to play a game with us. And I think people are so quick to assume that things are just kind of sinister in nature. I definitely do because of my relationship with ghosts that we learned last week, but there's an element of fun to it too. And I will say, when you look into the eyes of a dolphin, you feel it staring into your soul. They know things that we can't even begin to understand. And if that's happening on our planet, I am curious to see what's happening on other planets as well.
That's very insightful. So, everyone gets caught up in, the aliens are, abducting us. They're cloning us. They want to destroy us. They want to save. Maybe the aliens just want to tell us a good joke. Maybe they just want to have fun.
Yeah, maybe they do. Girls just want to have fun. So do aliens. So I think that might be something that we should bring up with our special guest. And if I don't see any reason not to, I think we should probably bring him in.
Yeah, why don't we take a quick break and come back with our special guest. We're back this week on Real True Facts, talking about aliens, and our very special guest goes simply by Agent 37. That's what I know him or her by.
Yes, they do go by that. We asked if we would be able to use, I believe it's a guy. If we were able to use his real name. He said no and didn't really extrapolate on any of that stuff. So we'll just go by his code. I guess it's code name Agent 37.
I think
and
that's good enough for us. For everyone. Yeah, I think it's
safest for everybody.
Yeah, that'll be safest for everyone. Yeah. So, Agent 37, are you with us?
I am here. Thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We know that speaking about these things can border on being very dangerous.
Yeah, just before we continue, just know that we have to tread very lightly and be very careful with what I can and cannot answer today. I'd love to help you out to the best of my ability. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And the other side of that coin, just know that we're only doing this to try and bring things to light for the public, and it's nothing is personal. If we're really poking and prodding and really getting in there in the crevices and the nooks and crannies, we're just trying to do our public service.
Understood. Thank you.
Now, your title is the Director of Alien Operations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, is there a specific organization? Are we allowed to? Can we tie you to the NSA or the OS? Like that. Okay.
Nothing that exciting, unfortunately. Just a little background on me. I do have a master in chemistry, PhD in aerophysics. I was a colonel in the Air Force, and currently I work as chief consultant on Space Force and close personal friend and colleague to Mr. Tom DeLong.
Oh, we love Tom.
Wow. Okay, that's good enough for me.
Yeah. Well, that's quite the pedigree. I guess I'll just call you 37, sort of like a James Bond kind of thing. Can you take us through like a normal day in the life? Is there a normal day when you're dealing with things like this?
It is. It's not as exciting as a lot of people. It's not all ray guns and explosions. Mostly it's just scrubbing the internet of videos and trying to. My week has been a little hectic. This week, of course, like going through and deleting videos and moderating Twitter and working closely with Google to make sure that certain things don't come to the surface, and a lot of office stuff, a lot of control alt delete, a lot of emails for work. You can imagine.
Yeah. Now, are you speaking specifically about the incidents in Brazil, or are there things beyond
that? But I think you can draw a correlation there.
Sure.
for just everyone's own safety. You got thousands of videos up, and we go, yes, there's aliens. You exactly what you saw was aliens. How do you think people are going to react to that? You see, we tried to close down states for 2 weeks, and people cram into bars and protest and riot. Could you imagine if we allowed videos of extraterrestrial life to just float around on Twitter?
Wow. So, where does maybe the history of this? Was there a point in time where the agencies or government said, made the decision, what, we have to, for their own safety, hide this from the public? Or has it been a gradual thing? Or was there like a one tipping point? Or I'm curious if there was, a meeting. They said, this information stuff is not going well, so let's just pretend that doesn't exist.
It's kind of our fun little slogan around the office, is that information is the enemy. I think history does repeat itself with people, and you see what happens when too much information comes at too many people too fast. You take the JFK assassination. One horrible person did a horrible, crazy thing, and then next thing you know, people are attacking the CIA and the mafia and Cuba and Russia. And the more information people have, I feel we need to limit the amount of content that are getting into people's hands for their own safety. They don't understand, and they try to take things in their own hands. And it would just be, if we released everything that we had, there would be chaos in the streets and rioting and looting. And what's the point? And believers would be non-believers, and non-believers would be believers. It's just best to limit that flow. Why do you think it took so many years for us to actually release the videos that we had?
Mm-hmm.
We go, okay, we'll give you this, and no one cared. And that was kind of that flow of, here they want these big reveals, and we give them a little bit, and it kind of satisfies them for a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought. We've kind of discussed similar thoughts in our previous episodes with our UFO reports and things, that kind of trickling out information to keep folks generally satisfied. So how far back does this go as far as information? I mean, we're talking, the 80s, the 20s, the 50s. I've heard so many different things. I don't really know. I don't know how long we've been visited.
Because you said it's not all ray guns, but that would help me assume that there might be some ray guns.
Well, you look back on events of alien sightings, and I'm not one of these information deniers. I will go on record and say that yes, that UFOs are real. Are there little green men in the spaceships? No. And you look back on different events throughout history, and when we've been visited, I believe that they are watching us. I believe that they are keeping an eye on us. And you go back through history and you look at, Area 51, for instance. What happened a year later? Fidel Castro begins a revolution in Cuba. We talk crisis of nuclear weapons and missiles, and before that, the atom bomb. There was sightings around a few months prior before the atom bomb. Brazil is another example of Brazil in the middle of a widespread virus. We have alien sightings kind of coming down, and 1996, of course, a couple of months before the release of Independence Day. Throughout all these, events in history, we've been visited by aliens, and I feel that they're keeping a watchful eye on us. There's many planets in this galaxy, and we, of course, have been very negligent with ours, as you're all aware, Dr. Seymour, I'm sure, Ben and Shirley, how we handle the environment and the planet and the things that we're given, and the borders and the nuclear weapons and the fallout. And so I think it is under my opinion and opinion of a few of the people I work under, is that they are keeping a close, watchful eye on us for the benefit and the better good of the other solar systems and planets that are out there. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I have a question, and I guess I'll open this up to anybody. Why do we always end up going to an us versus them kind of thing? And maybe Dr. Seymour can answer this too from an anthropologist standpoint, because I know he has a degree in anthropology that might be a social thing too. But I know a lot of times it comes down to our fear of the unknown, but a lot of times with aliens and making contact, it ends up being us versus them. And is it self-preservation to think that, or is that a negative thing that we should kind of throw out?
I mean, if you would like me to field that, we talk about the flow of information. Imagine if I told Ben, Dr. Seymour, and Shirley, I tell you that we are horribly outgunned and outmatched as far as technology and weapons are concerned. Could you imagine the amount of fear that you would live in, knowing that we do want to make it an us versus them, but there is no us versus them. There's no. We're bringing rocks to a firefight at this point. Horribly unmatched, and so that's where we talk about this information not being made public is the amount of fear that we would live in if there were to be a quote unquote attack, so to speak.
So it does seem that we are greatly outmatched with technology and weapons, but we've had some insight into what they have to offer. What would be one of the biggest kind of discoveries we've had into giving us insight into their technology?
Well, if you look at the videos that were released a while back, they have their spacecraft don't apply the physics that we have. They don't abide the same laws that we do, and so they are able to reach altitudes of 10, 30,000, 40, 50,000 feet in a matter of seconds, and they're also able to vanish in thin air. And so, which makes it a very difficult target if it is a hostile situation of bringing that target down when our radars can't even grasp a lock on it.
Oh, wow. So what about, I have to ask, alien autopsies, how many have you been a part of in your career? Being very careful on how to answer that, I will say 2, but not in the sense that you're thinking as far as like men. Most of the quote unquote alien life forms that we have found are microorganisms that we have found in the on the seats of spacecraft. Oh.
Okay. So
the big gray men with fingers and eyeballs, I have never seen.
Okay.
And mostly we're dealing with microorganisms and far advanced herbology type of things.
Okay. In your professional opinion, how long do you think it's going to be until the status quo is able to make contact in the way that we want to?
I believe that they are already here. I believe that they've been here for some time. As far as the purpose, other than we've concluded keeping a watchful eye on us. The sun rose today, right? We don't even think about that. The sun just kind of came up today. Imagine the sun didn't come up today, but just took a day off. The planet Earth would fail to exist in about 12 hours. That's the reality of the situation. We would all be dead in 12 hours. Well, say planet Earth decides to nuke itself into utter oblivion. We destroy our ozone layer. That's going to cause a ripple effect to other planets across the solar system. We're getting far more advanced with our weapons. We're getting far more advanced with how far we're going into space. That's signaling to other planets that we are, able to go further than we ever been, and which could cause a possible threat to them. So I believe it's more of not making contact as so much as recon mission is kind of what I like to call it. Is they are reporting. We do have reports that they are sending data back to somewhere in the form of a code that we don't quite understand. It's more not as much zeros and ones as it is almost a light and visual code.
Mm-hmm. Similar to what we saw in a movie like Close Encounters.
I've never seen that movie, but I'm sure. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I try to avoid the alien movies. It's I don't like to take my work home with me.
Yeah, it's true. It would be hard for you to watch like, that's not how that is, or they got it completely right. Maybe we should scrub this movie from from the history books.
We have talked about that before of certain movies, and we've kind of under the conclusion, well, the movie's already been released, the people have seen it. Some have gotten very close. I will say that we do have to watch stuff in our briefings, and some of these Hollywood movies have I don't know how, but have gotten it pretty accurate.
Can you say which ones?
Predator 2, I think,
Oh, wow.
was one that really surprised us.
Yeah.
I knew it. Some people prefer Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I think Danny Glover is a perfectly serviceable action star. So
Sure, I agree. I agree, but a lot of people say because he's past his prime and in his age, and I'm one of those that disagrees with that completely.
Exactly, I knew it. So, are there any movies that we're not aware of that were made that just didn't make it to our eyeballs?
Well, again, you have to be very careful about how I answer that. But some movies, definitely have been shelved for the greater good. I will say that.
So that makes sense. So we don't have another War of the Worlds situation. So that does, it's for our protection. So that part does make sense.
Mm-hmm.
What's the closest we've ever been to? I've heard how UFOs have gotten kind of triggered some of our systems, and almost caused World War III during the Cold War and things like that. How close have we really been to just total annihilation?
I'm very close at times. There have been some very close calls. Again, I believe that to reiterate, the solar impact of this whole situation. Earth is a part of a bigger piece. I don't think that they want that. Again, I think that offsets the balance of their planet and their solar system, and any sort of harm done to us, whether it be by them or by us, for the greater good. If Japan gets nuked, in America, we're going to see a fallout of that. Eventually, it may not be immediate, but you're going to look at it eventually as far as air quality or exports or fish. And if there's a tsunami in America, a year later will be felt on a different continent. So I believe it's the same kind of effect for them. They don't want global annihilation of us. They do. They have gotten close. True. When you try to stop something, you oftentimes start that thing that you are trying to prevent. And I believe that they have gotten close a few times trying to stop us on the brink of a global war, and have actually almost triggered that.
So why don't we take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Agent 37 giving us some more insight into aliens.
We are back on Real True Facts talking about aliens today with Agent 37, the Director of Alien Operations. He's got a pretty big pedigree within the government and technology. I believe he mentioned chemistry as well. So we are very lucky to have him today to talk to us about alien technology, perhaps making contact, and what might be the best case scenario for human and alien interaction. I want to ask Agent 37 a question because he brought this up, and this was also something that Dr. Lauren J. brought up too, is when they say that the aliens are already among us. Both times I've heard that, it's sort of been shrouded in secrecy, and I want to ask, are there aliens living among us?
Yes.
How do we know?
How do you know, or how do I know?
Well, I don't know if you can say how you know, but if we were to identify as a regular person, if we were to identify that out in the real world, how would we be able to recognize something like that?
Well, I'm not so sure that you or I would in our daily goings on. I believe with the data that we've collected and some of the research that we've done, I'm comfortable to say that there are aliens here. I believe that our dogs would be the first to know.
Sure.
You see when it comes to ghosts, which I firmly do not believe in. Dogs are barking at the air. I believe that is life from a different planet that is actually here trying to make contact and is here. I believe that they can see it before we can.
Mm-hmm.
So You mentioned microorganisms, kind of leftovers
Yes.
in some of the crafts. Did those leftovers give us any inkling as to what kind of beings we're dealing with? Are they small or big, or a size not part of their vocabulary?
Thank you. Yes, correct. It is not about size as it is to us, as far as weight and height. Size to them is so microscopic that it would be very hard for us to see. Again, which brings us back to why the animals may see them first. We're talking about something as small as almost like a black mold that would grow on the ceiling of your bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
To that size, very minuscule, very small, but very extremely powerful and extremely intelligent. Almost like a small CPU, almost like a computer system would be firing information off, but not very big. Is kind of what we're dealing with on the case. Now, again, there's clearance that I'm not allowed to have. So there are definitely agents ahead of me. Certainly, Agent 40 through 44 are privy to information that I am not. The little green men that so commonly displayed in movies and stuff, I have not seen. Not saying that doesn't exist either, or I have heard rumors around the office of shapeshifters, of someone that could be you and I, that could actually be an alien. My department is strictly the microorganisms and the minuscule, tiny, almost biological life forms that we have found.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Dr. Seymour, because you're saying that if these microorganisms are so small,
Yes,
that an animal like a dog might be able to sense something like that. I know dogs have something like 300 million olfactory receptors. Dr. Seymour, do you think that animals are kind of hardwired to identify alien life form in the same sense that maybe a dog could sniff out a bomb or be trained to do that? Do you think that's something that physiologically they are hardwired to do?
I do think that there are skills, features, abilities. There's the word I was looking for, that animals have that we are unaware of the need for them. We often attribute a dog's ability to find something strictly to smell, or we'll say something like a shark can smell blood in the water. But what has been found with more research is it's actually picking up an electromagnetic radiation that we just don't know what that is a footprint or fingerprint of. So there is a sensor there that is picking something up. And what we are most comfortable, or what we can most closely attribute it to, is one of our five senses. And due to its location in the animal's body, in most cases, we call it a sense of smell.
So the animals, we know animals can sense things that we can't necessarily sense, and it does. We often attribute it to they can sniff it out or smell it out. I wonder if it might make sense, or maybe it's already being done. We're not aware of it. Just like we create bomb-sniffing dogs, because as far as I'm aware, dogs they're not born and then they can find bombs. So maybe we can train these dogs or other animals to sniff out alien life forms. Is that realistic, Doctor?
That does seem like a very reasonable thing. It would definitely take, the right scent to put them on, putting them on the right trail, getting them trained at an appropriate time in their life. But this is a skill that they have, and it's definitely something that can be improved with practice and potentially even bred into certain species or certain breeds of dogs.
So then let's throw this over to Agent 37. Maybe you can't answer exactly, but are we doing anything like this currently?
Yes, we're way ahead of that. We've been using dogs since before I was in the agency. There are certain breeds of dogs who are better than others, and so we utilize those particular breeds of dogs. Most common being, of course, the poodle, of course, the Shih Tzu, and a Maltese poodle, and things of that. More hypoallergenic dogs. So we do find that dogs that classic hunting dogs who may have better noses, but do shed. We do find contaminate the evidence quite a bit. So we like to use hypoallergenic dogs in our research.
Interesting. So, are there any times when we're seeing service animals, or maybe a lady carrying, her dog in a vented suitcase at the airport? That maybe it's not just someone who really shouldn't be taking their pet with them, and they claim to have papers, even though it's really nothing official. They just feel like they're better than everyone else, and they can take their dog wherever they think.
Thank you, Ben. That is, not to let you behind too close to the veil, but if you'll notice, there is a emotional support animal on every flight now. I will just say that is not a coincidence.
Yeah, it does feel like that, doesn't it? It really does.
I knew there had to be
at least one on every flight I'm on.
Well, if you guys remember, after 9/11, people said we should have a U.S. Marshal or a U.S. Marshal on every single flight, and just because they're not wearing spurs and a cowboy hat and have their gun holstered to their side doesn't mean they're not on there. And the same thing can be said for alien sniffing dogs.
It's like that thing you always talk about, Ben, hiding in plain sight.
It is. I was just going to say the veil is being lifted. They don't all look like Joe Don Baker. You have, I don't know of any famous Shih Tzus and Poodles. I'm not, unfortunately, but they look like that.
We have some rock stars around the office. I can tell you that.
Wow. So that's opened my eyes. Like now I'll perhaps I'll look at it a different way the next time I'm at an airport and I'm surrounded by, all these little dogs that really have no place in an airport because, really why and I know they can be emotional support animals, but who's emotional? Everyone's emotional.
Yeah. And that public outrage, I think if we rally behind that and being outraged that people are abusing the privilege of having an emotional support animal or actual functioning dog for support in other capacities, then we may not think to connect the dots and say, okay, well, those dogs are being used for a different purpose. They're just hiding under the fact that they're being like that.
Exactly. Miss Jen. And it goes back to my original point of constricting the flow of information to the public. If I were to go on record and say that every emotional support animal on an airplane, which I'm not saying, say that were the case. Now the public knows that. Now these animals aren't allowed to do their jobs and operate freely, right? You've got, did you see something? Is it an alien? Is it gonna take this flight down? What'd you find? So now you're inhibiting the dog from doing its job properly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those little tidbits of information that we like to keep a little close to the vest.
Well, I want to ask you, 37, because you mentioned something about Space Force. I think when we all heard there was going to be a Space Force, I think the unanimous reaction around the country was that of elation.
Excitement.
Yeah, total excitement. I mean, this is such a necessary thing that we need to do. Can you speak on a little further what you're doing with Space Force? And does that, with your expertise in being the director of alien operations, is that something that you see spilling over into Space Force, maybe to go out to different galaxies? I don't want to say in like a Star Trek kind of way, but like, leading expositions for fact-finding missions.
Sure. I will say there are no secrets with Space Force. It's the only government program that is fully transparent. I was absolutely against the word force in the beginning because, like I had said before, if you're dealing with alien, some of the technology that we will not be exerting any force if it came to a firefight. Let's be very clear about that. I was outvoted on the name Space Force. I wanted to call it something else, but here we are. The Space Force is, what I'm being used for is kind of mapping out the area, sort of say, the Google Maps card you see driving around the neighborhood, kind of taking pictures of everything. I'm kind of the Google Maps car of Space Force, letting them know the general direction that we've seen. We talk about the light information. I believe you refer to it as close encounters of the third kind. We talk about that light information. I'm able to kind of point the director and the commander in chief into the direction of where we feel those signals are coming from and where they're not coming from.
Is this cartography? What would this be considered?
In a sense, it's a little bit more than that. But space is very vast, as I'm sure you have a Planet Channel, and you understand the complexity. you don't want to go shooting off a rocket in the wrong direction. Like I believe you spoke about black holes earlier and voids, and those are just what we know about. So we like to get kind of a triangulation on a signal, so we kind of have a good idea where we're going. If we're going to go up to these people and say, hey, I've got a jar of one of your buddies here that crash landed, kind of a peace offering, and we're here, and let's talk. We know that you've been on Earth for a while, so let's kind of talk and see what we can kind of come up with. So I'm kind of helping map out the general direction of where we go once we get the technology and the rocket and the ability to actually go there.
Yeah. So with these life forms, you're talking about them on a scale of like a microscopic scale.
Yes.
Yeah. And are you I know sometimes with cells and things like that, you can send electromagnetic impulses in order to communicate. If you were going to communicate with a microorganism, what is the best way to go about that? Is that through like sound waves, or you couldn't really speak English to it?
Correct. English is, again, English and ones and zeros. We're dealing with a different kind of speech. And for us, we've been very successful with little tiny car batteries and putting the positive and the negative on the actual microorganism and turning it to a medium to high voltage. And we don't know if they are emitting light. We don't know if it is, help, distress, I'm in pain, torture. But we do know that we are getting a response.
Right. It's communication, I think, and that's what's important. You know that it's working.
Thank you.
That might electrocute a human, but we don't know how something non-human would react to that.
Exactly, Shirley. These aren't humans. They're not us.
Right. If a human screams, we know. Hey, if a human can't scream, how do we know that it's in pain? We don't.
Have you been able to decode any messages that you've gotten from these experiments?
We have, and again, it's more GPS coordinates of, hey, this is where I'm at. I feel like this is an unsafe situation. I might be in pain. Can you please come get me? And we are able to kind of get a little bit closer of where that information is going to and on what planet. So again, when we are able to go out into space, we know kind of the general direction that we're going to.
So it's okay. So it's almost as if we're in between, they're communicating with one of their own or some other destination, and we're in between kind of catching what we can and trying to figure it out. Okay. That makes sense. So we've tried to communicate with them or getting a little bit back. Speaking of communication, we mentioned this earlier with alien jokes. Is there any indication that they may have a sense of humor?
It is based on research. It is we have found that they do not have a sense of humor in the sense that we would have hoped.
Ouch. Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Is it a little bit more dry? Like, are they more satirical and
they're
kind of heady a little bit? Like
what we've done with these organisms is we have showed various comedies to them to elicit a response. Of course, all 3 Rush Hour movies we've shown.
Sure.
Things of that sort, the second Caddyshack, things of that sort. And we're not seeing too much of a response as far as the humor, even though the writing is solid and the jokes are, pretty much bulletproof.
Wow.
On those 4 movies, we're not seeing a response. We are seeing a response on more daytime television things that you would see,
Sure.
as you would see kind of the hourglass on a lot of soap operas, Days of Our Lives, things of that sort. We are seeing a sort of kind of a kindred response from them of almost recognition.
Maybe they relate to the sand because it's small.
We thought about the sand because it's definitely when the hourglass gets tipped. We think that it could be them letting us know that our time here is running out. It could be a hostile. We're not sure. We're still looking into that.
We've talked to, especially in the last episode, and even earlier today, that we know that Hollywood is sometimes getting it right. And if you're showing these organisms like peak examples of comedy and humanity, and they're relating to it, then we know that there's some kind of common thread between the two of them there. So, I don't know ethically if that's something that should be continued, but I will leave it up to you, Agent, to do what is right.
Yep, that's where I get paid the big bucks, and you guys don't have to worry about too much. I will say that
there's some movies that we have shelved. There's some movies that we kind of had our hand in. There's also been some movies that we have released to to kind of promote kind of what we're doing here.
You finance some things.
You've seen Captain Marvel, you say, clearly that's been funded by the Air Force, or if you watch movies like Top Gun, things of that sort. We've had our hand in a few.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that we're not afraid to have a little fun.
I want to ask too, because we have spoken about ancient aliens as well, and their involvement in the pyramids, which we know from Dr. Lauren J. She did confirm the existence of a body. Now, that was ages ago. Are there bodies like that, like an actual humanoid, currently in your possession, or have the aliens evolved into something much smaller and undetectable?
I believe that they have evolved. There are rumors around the office, especially agents 41 through 45, have spoken of almost a human life form. I have personally not seen that, but I do know that there are whispers around the water cooler, so to speak, of them. They do have that. They do like to hold that over our heads at times. They kind of make fun of us because we have the jars full of bacteria, and then upstairs they may or may not have an alien body. I will say that it's nowhere near Area 51. I believe that people were trying to raid Area 51 last year, which was going to be very disappointing for them. We do have things in undisclosed locations, definitely nowhere near Nevada. But as far as a human, again, I haven't seen that. I have been taunted, by my superiors that it's above my pay grade, and Agent 37 can't look at the alien body that we have upstairs, things of that sort. So I am to believe that there is something, yes, and I do believe that it has gotten smaller throughout the years.
Mm-hmm. Because we talked about the aliens' involvement in the pyramids and that they were able to build something like that. Do you think they are capable of building something like that again, or is it, or will we find them more on like a smaller level as far as like evolution goes? If we are to maybe absorb these organisms within us, I don't want to say mutants, but could that happen?
I mean, anything's possible right now, especially with the advancement and what we're seeing is the visitations are becoming more and more frequent. I believe it would appear as something as like a virus that we would that would be the way they would infiltrate us. Something like that were to happen.
Yeah, well, I'll open that up to Dr. Seymour too. In your professional opinion, what do you think is next in the case of human evolution?
I think the next natural step in human evolution is kind of breaching the fourth dimension of time, and I do think these aliens with more technology, with more experience traveling greater distances in small amount of time, that's a natural connection there. That it could be some overlap, could be something that comes from them, could be something that was naturally in our trajectory and they're just ahead of us along those things, but definitely kind of going from a 3-dimensional to a 4-dimensional life experience.
Mm-hmm. And Dr. Seymour, because that all sounds like the next step in human evolution is going to be an alien one. Do you think that we have a missing link now between what humans are going to be in the future, or do you think that is already there?
That's a great question. We in a previous episode we did talk about like the transition from ape to man, and how that wasn't a light switch where one iteration disappears and the next appears. And I think that there's a very good chance that the process is starting, that the alien evolution of human is slowly starting. I think some are aware of it. Many people are in the unaware stages, but I think the general population is still maybe 1 to 2 generations from it.
Sure. I mean, that's all just speculation at this point. And sometimes it's good to do that. Sometimes it's good to ask these questions, because fortunately we have specialists such as yourselves that are able to answer these things. I think we are due for another break, so why don't we go into that, and we will be right back with Agent 37 and Dr. Seymour talking today about aliens among us. We'll be right back.
We're back this week talking about aliens on Real True Facts with Agent 37 and our resident in-house science expert, Dr. Seymour. And we've covered quite a bit of things and learned a lot of new things, such as, that size is relative and everything isn't always as it seems.
Yeah, there's a lot of new things that I certainly did not know as far as size and maybe what the aliens want right now and how we're able to communicate. So I'm just considering this part one in a very, very long series of uncovering the truth about aliens and many different kinds of aliens that we're learning as well.
Right, and it's just one more facet of our ongoing investigation into revealing the truth and the facts for everyone out there. It's what we do, and we'll continue to delve deeper. So before we say goodbye to both Dr. Seymour and Agent 37, since it sounds like that so many aliens are in plain sight, one thing that I always ask for is advice or hints or suggestions for folks to stay safe. So Agent 37, if we think, we might be interacting with an alien or something, should we be doing or not doing certain things?
Well, just from our research, they do respond to violence and torture as far as electromagnetic sort of shocks. So I would not suggest trying to electrocute them in any sense of that. I would, we have a pretty good eye on things, and we are not led to believe that they are hostile at this point. Again, if you were to confront an alien, and with violence, we do believe that it would not. It would end very quickly for you. So if something happens, just do not engage. Call the local authorities, and somebody will contact us.
Okay, so keep calm and carry on.
Yeah, keep calm, carry on. Dr. Seymour, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
I think to just add to that and what Agent 37 said before, from the perspective of the alien species, and not just Earth, but the whole universe, the galaxy, our species thriving and doing well, allowing Earth to thrive is something that's positive, not just for us, but for everyone. So the fact that we are outmatched in this fight is not necessarily a bad thing, because they just want what's best for us, because it's what's best for them. So by living our best life, and as we said, keeping calm, we are in fact helping ourselves help them make this a safer place.
My hope is that we ultimately find something that we both think is funny. I think there's a lot of unity and humor, and I think if we can both find something to laugh at, something to relate to, that might make our world a little bit smaller, make us understand these alien life forms just a little bit better. So I'll go ahead and say thank you to Agent 37. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And I know maybe at times it might seem a little boring, but it's very fascinating to us. And we know you're taking a great risk coming here today to speak on that. But what we do is a public service, and we certainly appreciate your expertise.
Yes, thank you, Shirley, Dr. Seymour, and Ben, for having me. It's good talking with you.
And we'll check in occasionally with Agent 37 and see how we're doing. I'll go ahead and close up the Science Bunker here. Thank you, Dr. Seymour, for joining us again this week. We certainly appreciate it.
So, Shirley, do we have what kind of viewer mail have we picked out for this week?
We have some mail. So it's a good pile today. New information from Real True Facts. We are now on YouTube. So
Okay, yeah, that's cool because I know a lot of people. YouTube goes back so many years. A lot of people use it to just play audio in the background.
yeah.
So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, so people are able to do that. If they are unable to listen to us in a different capacity, they can listen to us on YouTube. We'll have more content on our YouTube channel in the future, but right now you can catch all of our different episodes there. We do have a comment from YouTube. A listener wrote, "Awesome vid, more content, please."
Okay, I think that means they enjoyed the video and they hope for us to post more.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that vid means video. So we will definitely do that, YouTuber. We will do that. Our second message today comes from our email address.
Okay.
That is realtruefactsmail@gmail.com. You can email us all of your questions, comments, anything, recipes. We like recipes as well. You can email us there. Comes from a user that says, "Secret societies. Your episode about secret societies gave me the courage to stand up to my husband of 20 years, who I think was in some kind of secret club. Our marriage is stronger than ever."
Wow.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, sweet, and it really is gratifying. I mean, it lets us know that what we're doing makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, we're saving marriages, man.
Yeah, more messages like that, folks. Instead of, "Hey, I have this super secret message and all these interesting facts about cryptids and space and monsters," feel free to tell us how we're making your life better.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's another part of the public service is just, human connection. Even though we're in bunkers, we can still connect with each other. Our last email today is about the Mothman. This says, "I loved your Mothman and recent episodes, but they were a little scary. When will you do an episode on something friendly like Bigfoot?"
Oh, so someone's reacting to the spookiness of our episodes.
Yeah, some of our episodes can get a little scary.
But it's all out of the all to serve humanity.
Yes.
I mean, why not do an episode on Bigfoot? It's we opened the can of worms on aliens, so maybe we open the Bigfoot can next.
Yes, I would absolutely love to do an episode on Bigfoot. He is one of our favorite cryptids, and we do have our Bigfoot report where we've been monitoring different things going on with Bigfoot over the years. And so, let's give him his day in the sun. Let's do an episode about Bigfoot. So why don't we have our listeners tune back in next week, and we'll talk all about Bigfoot.
That's exciting. Bigfoot is one of my personal favorites, so I'm
excited. It'll be a fun one. It won't be scary. It'll be fun because Bigfoot's a very peaceful, nature-loving creature. So we'll get in more about that. But in the meantime, if you would like to contact us, you can do so at the following places. Obviously, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can have more video content there. Right now, more episodes that will be up. We are also linking our podcast on Apple Podcasts on YouTube. So if you want to listen over there, you can always do that. Leave a comment, give us a rating. It helps us do our jobs better. You can also email realtruefactsmail@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at realtruefactsgram.
Wow, that's I hope.
I know, it's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, so just
for people who live in bunkers, we surely love being contacted.
Yeah, subscribe on iTunes and rate us, please. That's
yes,
what I'll
please
ask.
Do. Yeah, and if you like the show, you like what you hear, please tell your friends. That helps us get our message out to more people and help more and enlighten more as well.
Indeed.
So I think if that's it, we will say goodbye to you this week, dear listeners, on Real True Facts. Please join us again next week. We'll talk about the Bigfoot. We will answer more of your questions, and we'll just have some fun. Thank you again to our guest, Dr. Seymour and Agent 37. We appreciate all of your time. We appreciate you, and we appreciate you, listeners. Keep tuning in and keep questioning your world, because just because you hear it or see it doesn't mean it's true. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.